Here to present to you our plants and succession project.
The environment in which we have chosen is on Mars,
We picked 5 amazing plants that we will be bringing up to Mars with us.
such as ginger, bananas, potatoes, wheat, and carrots.
Why did we choose them, you may ask?
Ginger is very useful for medicine and spice.
Bananas are useful for potassium and they don't need too much water.
Potatoes are really good use for protein in different dishes.
Wheats are a really good replacement of rice and it's easier to grow.
Carrots is another good source of food that could make a variety of dishes.
Ah, yes, but do you know? Carrots reduces the risk of cancer.
That's whack!
Plants grow in various places.
So we grow our crops in a greenhouse because most of the crops need to avoid a lot of excess radiation on Mars.
Exactly.
So, our plants have 2 kinds of tissues, the xylem and the phloem.
The xylem carries water and nutrients from the roots through the stem to the leaf, while the phloem carries sugar, otherwise known as glucose.
You may be asking, what stores through quality nutrients in water?
No one asked, what do you mean?
The vacuole. If the vacuole is destroyed, however, the plants will just die, whether it be slowly or quickly.
To extend on this just a bit, once the tissues in the plants get destroyed along with the vacuole, the tissues won't be able to recover. That's how the plants die. But if the vacuole is that valuable, then how do we protect it?
See, we just need to make sure nothing trample over it, like animals or whatever pose as a possible harm.
But since we're on Mars,
There's none anyway.
moving on.
Plants need a lot of different things to survive. What would those important things be?
The answer to that would be soil, water, and sunlight. And where do we obtain those?
As for soil, we may have to bring some from Earth itself and also a compost tumbler to compost whatever waste we may have into carbon dioxide, heat, and compost, which can be put on top of the soil for more nutrients for the plants.
As for sunlight, we just have to make sure our plants get enough exposure in the sun, but not too much because of high radiation on Mars. As for water, we have to boil down the ice on Mars or use a condensation machine to condense the water vapor.
Then possibly use some fertilizer that we bring up to Mars.
Yep.
So about tropisms.
Yes, so negative tropism is going away from the source.
Positive tropism is heading to the source.
Geotropism is the plants reacting to gravity.
Phototropism is reacting to light, specifically sunlight.
And hydrotropism is when the plant is reacting toward water.
Gotta keep it moist.
All of our plants show some kind of positive tropism. They all need some sunlight and they all need nutrients from the soil and water. For example, the ginger's roots would grow toward the ground in search of water and nutrients and also reacting to gravity. Then its leaves or body would grow upward in reaction to and search for sunlight.
And tropisms are controlled by hormones called auxins, by the way.
Whack! Plants also reproduce like any other living things, whether it be sexual or asexual.
As for our plants, 2 of them produce asexually, 1 produces sexually.
Then what about the 2 other plants?
Those ones can produce both ways depending on which type they are. Those plants are potatoes and bananas.
The 2 that produce asexually are ginger and carrots.
As for the ones that produce sexually, that's wheat. To further extend, it's an angiosperm, which means it produces with flowers in comparison to gymnosperms, which reproduces without flowers.
Didn't we learn stuff about pollination that is needed for those that produce with flowers to reproduce and whatnot?
What?
I don't know. Yeah, how do we help with pollination on Mars? Because, there's no bees and stuff.
We can still simply use wind to, let the pollen blow over slowly, water the plants, and pollen flow with that. Yay.
Yeah! We have some pretty strong plants that could survive some severe conditions.
Ginger can adapt to really high radiation. That's high radiation on Mars.
Bananas can survive warm to hot climates.
Wheat can survive drought. It's great, especially if we need water reserved for other plants and purposes.
And carrots require only few water, but too much would kill them. Potatoes can survive in high temperatures and also high salt in the water, if we do have that.
They all don't need any mutations to change them. They're all perfect the way they are right now. We never really reconsidered any of them.
Any succession disasters can't really be happening on Mars. There can't be any wildfires or flooding for all we know.
We also need a short-term plan because it would take some time to have the crops to be fully grown and harvested.
And in the meantime, we'll work with the food that we brought up that could help us for a couple of years.
Soil depth and diversity in a community is pretty important because different plants need different soil depth. Here are the soil depths for all of our plants, starting with ginger. It doesn't need too deep of soil, only 2 to 4 inches.
Bananas need to be 5 to 30 feet deep into soil since it grows as a tree.
Potatoes need to be 12 inches deep.
Wheats need to be 12 to 16 inches deep.
And carrots need to be 6 to 12 inches deep. There are different cycles on Earth that are essential to all living things.
A few examples are the carbon cycle and the water cycle, aka the slightly more known one among people.
The other cycle aside from those two, and on Mars, we need to make sure they are all happening, otherwise our farms will not succeed.
So first, the carbon cycle. The cycle in itself won't change much, as on Mars there is already a lot of carbon dioxide for our plants to make use. In this case, we won't have to worry about not getting enough.
Next is the water cycle. Water on Mars will take more effort to acquire. Most of it comes in the form of ice frozen in the Martian soil, and it also comes in the form of water vapor.
In order to acquire water, our plans are to either boil the ice into water out of the soil,
or bring a condensation machine to turn the water vapor in the air into normal water. Of course, if you want to drink it without dying, you should boil the water.
The nitrogen cycle is also an important part. However, nitrogen in the atmosphere is thin and is converted into nitrous and such.
Instead, we will just have to wait for the plants to grow out its roots, and the bacteria that take shelter there will begin converting the nitrogen into nitrates.
Last but not least is the phosphorus cycle. There aren't any rocks or rain from our knowledge on Mars to possibly produce phosphate ions. A solution is to bring up rocks to Mars and regulate rain to help release the phosphate.
But another solution is to bring up fertilizer, which contains phosphate, and use it on the plants. Of course, we can't use too much. It makes the plants look dried out and unhealthy. It makes it harder for plants to absorb nutrients.
Let's summarize the important points and conclude this.
For greenhouse gases, we have plenty of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere on Mars.
As for water, we have the condensation machine and melt the water out of the soil, whether it be through a pot or something along the line. With the filter to obviously filter out the soil.
As for resources, we have sunlight from the sun, water like mentioned before, and soil brought up from Earth, and also attempts to convert Martian soil into something more usable.
Hope you enjoyed this video about plants in succession on Mars. Okay, bye.
Reese's Puffs, Reese's Puffs. Eat 'em up, beat 'em up, beat 'em up, beat 'em up. Reese's Puffs.